Recently I was on vacation in Italy. It was very nice and a lot of fun, but unfortunately nowadays many people are not able to be fully present when they have nice experiences while traveling. But not only on vacation, also in everyday life it is often difficult to be present. But why is this even the case? One of the biggest problems is the information overflow of today's world. We get flooded with information all day long, no matter if right after getting up, during the day or before going to bed. There's always some kind of information waiting for us. That's the case because the transmitter of the information have become very portable over the last few decades. But why is that actually such a bad thing? The problem is that this causes us to absorb information all the time without any breaks. Because if we can't escape the information sources, we can't escape the information either, since the sources have an almost infinite supply. The underlying issue is that our brain needs to process all this information. And since there's so much information around us, our brain is basically constantly busy processing it. This influences our perception. Namely, we are no longer able to fully perceive the present moment. Instead, our thoughts are always somewhere else. For example, when we are outside, we tend to think about that one Instagram post we saw half an hour ago, rather than focusing on the beautiful things around us. So I think we really need to limit our consumption in order to free our minds and live in the current moment again. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just now. Another problem we nowadays face is the pressure that is put on people. This makes you always think about the pressure instead of enjoying the present moment. Because the only thing you care about is how you can achieve those goals, and since these goals relate to the future in most cases, your perception drifts away from the present moment. I really like the quote from Ryan Holiday regarding this topic. He said, "The need for progress can be the enemy of enjoying the process." For me, this quote translates to, the more pressure, the less we are able to enjoy the process, because pressure is basically the need for progress. Probably we can't really reduce the pressure, but we can learn to deal with it in a healthy way. Otherwise, you only think about coming up to those expectations, so the only important thing is achieving the goal, and the process suddenly becomes irrelevant. However, if we train our minds to fully focus on the present moment, we can fall in love with the process again and enjoy every single step of it. But whether we are talking about the pressure or the information overflow of today's world, I think the fundamental problem is that life in general has become too complex. If we compare life today with life 500 years ago, there are many differences. Back then, life used to be much simpler. Many young people just worked on their parents' farm and took it over as soon as they were old enough. There weren't such things as universities, and the only information they absorbed was gossip of the other villagers. The point is that if there are no universities, no one can expect you to get your master's degree. And when there's so little information in general, you don't have to be careful not to take in too much of it. I think this is the key difference compared to now, because today we certainly need to pay attention not to absorb too much information. And the countless opportunities we now have offer the perfect foundation to put pressure on other people. Overall, the complexity of today's life brings many challenges with it. However, the problem is that many people lack awareness. For instance, they don't realize that they need to reduce their information sources. And if you're not aware of a problem, you can't do anything about it. So I really think that our society needs to be more aware of such things. But we have to keep in mind that awareness itself does not solve the problem. However, it allows us to take action and start working on solutions. The point is that 500 years ago, this awareness was not required because life was very simple back then. But today, we are in a completely different situation where it is very difficult to be present in your life unless you actively do something about it. I think you can also see this well by comparing first world and third world countries. In third world countries, life is sometimes as simple as it used to be 500 years ago. So the people who live there have very little information and distractions around them, which allows them to be present in their lives. That's why people who have little are usually happy, because a simple and therefore present life is usually a happy life. In first world countries, on the other hand, the complexity of life brings so many distractions and worries that we often can't enjoy the present moment anymore and are therefore more likely to be unhappy. Probably we need to remind ourselves more often that the moment right now is all we have in the end. Now I'd like to talk about the things that made me more present in my life. One thing that helped me is to be present in my mind. By that I mean that you should not constantly think about your future. To be honest, this is one of my biggest issues, as the majority of my thoughts are about the future. This makes it very difficult to focus on the present moment. Another reason not to think about the future is that it's too complex to be predictable. So if you have too clear ideas, there's a big chance that you will be disappointed because what you hoped for will not happen. All in all, I think you're better off focusing on the present moment. For me, there's still a long way to go. Something else that helped me is to consciously focus on the things around me. For example, when walking outdoors, try to focus only on the things around you. And when there's a thought about the work you have to do by tomorrow, just ignore it and focus again on your environment. This takes a lot of practice, because it's very hard not to get lost in your thoughts. One thing that made it easier for me is to focus on small details, because that requires more attention than just looking around. Usually you only see the water, the sky, the trees, but once you start to consciously focus on small details, you will be amazed at how many things there are when you look not only at the big picture, but also at the smaller things. Since I started doing this, I've noticed things I never saw before. In general, I found for myself that the more attentive I am to my surroundings, the less likely I am to be distracted by other thoughts. But instead of talking, I'd rather show you now.
Watch the ocean kiss the moon. Run away with me, where the morning paints the sea. With the fire, with the glow, we found love we won't let go. In the twilight of the night, see the colors burst in the sky. Watch the world fade away. We're wide awake. We're wide awake. We're wide awake. We're the fire, we're the glow. We found love we won't let go. In the twilight of the night, see the colors burst in the sky. Watch the world fade away. We're wide awake.
Now that I've talked about some of my measures, I challenge you to also take at least one measure that makes you more present in your life. For example, on your next walk in the forest, you could try to focus on more details than you normally do. But whatever measure you choose, it's very important that you start as soon as possible and stick with it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks a lot for watching, I really appreciate it, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.